So, on a tour of some of these sites throughout Wales and England to do with King Arthur, I found King Arthur's Cave, and the River Wye is about 200 yards over to my left. And behind me, archaeologists say that they don't know for a fact that King Arthur was buried here because they don't know for a fact that King Arthur was a person. And even historians say that they don't know why it was called King Arthur's Cave. They don't know what gave it this connotation sometime in history. But I tend to think that if you name a building John's house, then you can fairly safe to assume that the person who lives there is John. Now, above me is an Iron Age hill fort. It's almost completely gone now. There's no real remnants of it. But inside of this cave was found, apparently in 1700, so the legend goes, a 7 to 8 foot tall skeleton. Now, at the time, the aristocracy really liked these large skeletons. They loved mummies and skeletons, and they would sort of wheel them out for their upper class parties in their mansions. And so it went to I believe, a doctor or a lawyer who took it on his ship with him to Jamaica, where he owned a bit of land. Unfortunately, the ship capsized, and we lost both the doctor and the skeleton. But some alternative archaeologists, swish, swish, alternative, meaning, the biblical archaeologists and the folklore archaeologists, have recently said that when this was uncovered, there was a language in the back of the cave above it called Col Bren, or Bard's language. Now, this language was discovered by a man named Olo Morganwg, who was a Celtic revivalist, a Welsh Celtic revivalist, who claimed that the Druids had survived in southern Wales. And now, at this point in time, in the 18th century, I believe, there were only 2 or 3 of them left. And their language was Col Bren. And this language was found apparently in a cave. Now, whether or not we assume that King Arthur was buried here, it is fairly safe to assume that this cave must have held an important role in prehistory for this site, because there is an Iron Age fort on the top of it, and right underneath you have this vast cavern. And believe it or not, it actually has a sizable space for a good number of people in there. And when archaeologists finally came along to excavate it, they found the remains of things from the Ice Age. They found mammoths, they found sloths, exotic deer that have never been seen before in the UK, many extinct animals, and it must have held some very significant importance for prehistoric man. Top this with the fact that a very commonly told legend of King Arthur is that he lies dormant underneath a castle. Now, in modern mythology, this is considered to be underneath a grand sort of Anglo-Saxon or Norman castle, but if we really consider King Arthur as a king of the Britons, of the Celtic people, then we would assume that the castle that he would be buried underneath would probably be something closer to what's behind me, an Iron Age fort. So, was King Arthur buried here? I don't know. I don't even know if King Arthur was a person, but it's interesting to explore the idea, to think that maybe one of the last kings of the Britons is buried in the cave behind me, or was, until that doctor lawyer came around and accidentally dropped him off the coast of Jamaica somewhere. But I hope that one day it is easier to discover these sort of remnants of Britain's distant past, the Isle of Albion, and discover some of the history and the lost sort of folklore of these beautiful, beautiful islands.